Okay. I was just brought in, so are we ready? I'll wait for Adrian.
Madam Chair, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Just working out a couple kinks. We'll be right with you.
Okay. Okay. We'll wait.
Can everyone hear me all right?
Yes, Bill.
Thank you.
Good evening. It's Maria.
Hi, Maria.
Hi, Maria.
Hello.
Everybody can hear me okay?
Yes.
Wanda, you can hear me? This is Andy.
Yes.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Can hear you, but oh yeah, your video's over there.
Okay, Madam Chair, I believe we're ready and we
Okay.
do have a quorum.
Okay, great. Good evening and welcome to the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for February 18th, 2021. The commissioners who are present this evening are at City Hall and on Zoom. We also have staff from the City Attorney and City Clerk's offices, as well as City Planning Department. If you're joining us on Zoom this evening, we can see that you're here and you may observe the meeting. However, your ability to be seen on screen and talk will be muted. During the public testimony portion of the meeting, you'll be unmuted and then be able to comment. Please note that we cannot take questions until the public testimony portion. If you have a process question during the meeting, please email cityclerk@meridiancity.org and they will reply to you as quickly as possible. If you simply want to watch this evening's meeting, we encourage you to watch this streaming on the city's YouTube channel. You can access it at meridiancity.org/live. And with that, let's begin with roll call.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Grove,
Here.
Commissioner Yearsley,
Here.
Commissioner Lorcher,
Here.
Commissioner Seal,
Here.
Commissioner McCarville.
Here.
Absent are Commissioners Holland and Casanelli.
Okay, thank you. The first item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. We do have Foxcroft subdivision H 2020-0113, which is currently open from the last meeting, is requested to be continued again to March 4th in order to have more time to work through the staff's conditions of approval in the staff report. That item will not be heard this evening. If there is anybody here to testify in that particular application, we'll not be taking testimony this evening. So could I get a motion to adopt the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to adopt the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Oh, and we have 3 items on the consent agenda. Approve the minutes of the February 4th meeting. Findings of fact, conclusion of law for a human being, 2020-0125, and findings of fact, conclusion of law for North Point Recovery Center, H-2020-0126. With that, could I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So at this time, I'll briefly explain the public hearing process. We will open each item individually and begin with the staff report. And the staff will report their findings on how the item adheres to our comprehensive plan and unified development code. After staff has made their presentation, the applicant will come forward to present their case and respond to staff comments, and they will have 15 minutes to do so. After the applicant has finished, we will open the floor to public testimony. Each person will be called on only once during the public testimony. The clerk will call the names individually of those who signed up on our website in advance to testify. You will then be unmuted. Please state your name and address for the record, and you will have 3 minutes to address the commission. If you have previously sent pictures or presentation for the meeting, it will be displayed on the screen and our clerk will run the presentation. If you have established that you are speaking on behalf of a larger group like an HOA where others from that group are not speaking, you will have up to 10 minutes. After all those who have signed up in advance have spoken, we will invite others who may wish to testify. If you wish to speak on the topic, you may press the raise hand button on the Zoom app, or if you are listening on a phone, please press *9 and wait for your name to be called. If you're listening on multiple devices, a computer and a phone, for example, please be sure to mute the extra devices so we do not experience feedback and we can hear you clearly. When you are finished, if the commission does not have questions for you, you will then be muted and no longer have the ability to speak. Please remember, we will not call on you a second time. After all testimony has been heard, the applicant will be given another 10 minutes to come back and respond. When the applicant has finished responding to the questions and concerns, we will close the public hearing and the commissioners will have the opportunity to discuss and hopefully be able to make final decision or recommendation to City Council as needed. So at this time, we'd like to continue the public hearing for item H-2020-0113 Fox Cross subdivision. And does staff have any comments they'd like at this time, or do we want to proceed to a motion?
Madam Chair, I have no other comments other than what you said for the reason why.
Okay, great. Could I get a motion to continue item H-2020-0113 to March 4th, 2021? I guess if the commission doesn't have any other discussion on the item.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Seal.
I move to continue file number H-2020-0113 to the hearing date of March 4th to give the applicant more time to walk through the staff's conditions of approval in the staff report.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to continue H-2020-0113 to March 4th. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda, and there was a typo on the public agenda. It should be H-2020, not H-2021, 0124, Ambles Run subdivision. And with that, we'll begin with the staff report.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for recognizing that minor mistake there. As noted, the first item that we're actually hearing tonight is for Ambles Run subdivision, located about a quarter mile east of Locust Grove and south of Chinden Avenue. It is a lot and block within the existing county Dunwoody subdivision. The applicant is requesting annexation and zoning of 2.88 acres of land with a request for the R2 zoning district and a preliminary plat for 6 single-family residential lots. The property lies within the low-density residential future land use designation, which allows single-family dwellings at a gross density less than 3 dwelling units per acre. The proposed project meets both the allowed use and the density requirements of the requested zoning and future land use. The proposed density should function as a transitional density from the Vienna Woods subdivision on the south to the existing Dunwoody subdivision surrounding it to the north, west, and east. Staff finds the proposed density as appropriate in addition to meeting our comprehensive plan. Access into the site is proposed via extending Chopin Avenue, which is abutting the site to the south, and it's the only available point of access into the site. The applicant is proposing to provide parkways with street trees along both sides of Chopin. As currently proposed, the project is proposing approximately 4% open space that would be qualifying should it, if any, were required. This number is important because if this property was required, if it was greater than 5 acres to be exact, the project would only be required to provide 5% due to the lot containing buildable lots or an ability to gain all building lots that are over 16,000 square feet. Writing open space for developments is a critical point within the comprehensive plan to help create a sense of place and add green space for residents to enjoy. Therefore, staff is recommending that the applicant revise the landscape plans to show 10-foot wide parkways instead of 8-foot wide to increase the open space for the project and meet that 5% threshold. Providing open space at this level is not required by code, again, to be clear, but staff believes it helps the project meet the spirit of the code and allows for even more of an identity for the small subdivision because 10-foot parkways, one, allow trees more room to grow and they tend to be healthier with that versus 8-foot. And with our code allows bigger trees within 10-foot wide parkways versus 8. In addition to wider parkways, staff is recommending a revision to the road layout to better comply with the comprehensive plan and help with future development in this area. The applicant should provide a substreet to their western boundary, and preliminary conditions or discussions with ACHD have determined that this applicant would be required to construct a full street section. However, the applicant should work with ACHD on a reduced street section for this substreet to minimize the impact to this property. By providing a substreet to the north and to the west, this parcel can set up road connectivity and utility placement for future development in this area, which should create a more cohesive design. Furthermore, this recommended change does not create the need to lose any lots or change the request for R2 zoning, as each lot would still meet the minimum dimensional standards for R2 after reducing the lot widths along the western boundary. The submitted landscape plan also shows a raised berm with relatively full landscaping along the rear of the building lots. This landscaping on private lots is not regulated by code, and therefore staff does not recommend adding any provisions regarding this landscaping. The applicant intends to maintain the berm and landscaped areas through the HOA and subsequent CCNRs, or conditions, covenants, and restrictions, that the city does not regulate. Staff believes this is the appropriate way to regulate and maintain the proposed landscaping on the private building lots. I would like to circle back to my recommended changes to have a western stub street. The applicant did speak with ACHD following my staff report, and ACHD will not allow them to do a reduced street section as a stub street to their western boundary, which is unfortunate. They only allow that in cases where there are site constraints, which usually means existing development. And because there isn't any, they would like a full standard street section. Therefore, with that knowledge, as well as understanding that whether this street is on this side of the north property line or the north side of the property line with a future project, it will not make or break this project. And therefore I'm expecting the applicant to request that that condition be waived, and I'm amenable to that. I prefer these 6 lots be approved rather than denied over a short stub street that will eventually be there with future development in this area. There was one piece of public testimony submitted as of approximately 4:30 p.m. this afternoon. It's from the neighbors to the west that are in the Dunwoody subdivision, from my understanding, Mr. and Mrs. Rammel, and they were noting that they would like a stub street to their eastern, this western, so the shared property line on the west side, for another access point to their lot. Other than that, staff does recommend approval of the subject application as noted with, and I will stand for any questions that you guys have. Thank you.
Any questions for staff? I do have one for you, Joe. What number is the item on the stub street that you're okay with us striking if that's the direction the commission goes?
Madam Chair, there's multiple because it goes through the plat conditions as well as the landscape conditions.
Okay.
I don't have that in front of me. I apologize.
So we're probably good with, if in the discussions and of just talking about there being no stub street.
Correct. I can easily go back
Okay.
through and do that afterwards.
Okay. Okay. All right. Would the applicant like to come forward?
Hi there, Michael Miller. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Again, my name is Michael Miller. My address is 1308 North 12th Street, Boise, Idaho. I have a presentation. Can I share that with you?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay, so I'm gonna go here and let's share. Excuse me. Okay. All right. So give me a second here. Okay, can you see that?
We have a white screen right now.
Resume share. Apologies for the complications.
No problem. There we go.
Got it?
We have it.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, the commissioners, for allowing this opportunity to present our application. A big thank you to Joseph Dodson. We pre-apped this application in August, almost 6 months ago, and he has been very communicative and helpful throughout this entire process. So, as he mentioned, our parcel here, can you see my mouse?
Yes.
Okay, our parcel here lies just outside of the Dunwoody subdivision. Originally, this was an open space lot connected to the Dunwoody subdivision. Each of these residential lots were designated an open space lot. And in 2 years ago, in July, during a purchase and sale agreement, this open space lot was separated from this residential lot and now has no access through Dunwoody. Our only access is through Chopin. As you can see here, the Dunwoody subdivision is all county, and Meridian has grown around us. And our only option for utilities is to stub here through Chopin, the Vienna Woods subdivision. Traffic will flow down Locust Grove and come through Strauss and up through Chopin. This is kind of a little image of what it will look like. It will terminate in a cul-de-sac. We have 6 homes planned with a fence along the border here. The highest and best use for this land is residential development. In our due diligence through this last 6 months, we spoke with the neighbors who do have an intention to develop. It was important to staff that we show how a Western interconnectivity could be possible. And they provided us this plan. And I don't know if this is what they're still doing, but this was an initial rough draft presented to us. They would go through here and then out through Dunwoody, stubbing to this northern property. They would stub west and then out and continue for the rest of their development. This is the idea of what we would want if we were controlling the entire 15 acres, but we only have the 20%, the 3 acres, 2.8 acres right here. So we do not think that a Western stub street is good for our project or for future development. As you can see, if we were to stub at any part of our western border here, it would go directly into this property here. If we were to use up the full length of our parcel here, these lots would be like 50 by 50 and the road would end right into this home and there would be double frontage. So a Western stub street almost along the entire length of our western border provides several complications to future development, but they do already intend to stub to the west here on this property, and this will allow them to continue through, and we open the door for that development. As Joseph said, we have 6 lots here. We originally started out with 8. My first impression was that we would need to be zoned R4, which is contiguous with the Vienna Woods subdivision. But after our neighborhood meeting, they requested that we lower our density and change our zoning request. And so we were amenable to that. And we changed it to 6 0.4 acre lots. We also have in our landscape plan here, you can see a 3-foot berm with, I think, like over 90 pieces of vegetation and landscaping, along with a 6-foot cedar fence to help provide privacy for the Dunwoody subdivision, those neighbors right here along our eastern border. We are also proposing that the homes be single level with a bonus room, so that at least here on these 3, so that Dunwoody would have maintain its privacy. Just like a couple quick facts, the last year in 2020, there were, I think, 1,300 new construction sales on 0.4 acres or less, and only 16 of those were 0.4 acres or larger. We just make that point to show that we think this is going to be a great fit for Meridian, these large open size lots. Regarding staff's recommendation for the 8-foot parkway to go to 10 feet, we're not in disagreement with that. The Vienna Woods subdivision right here, their parkways are 6 feet. So we thought it would be a good transition to just go 2 feet wider. And yeah, so as he mentioned, with our open space and these parkways, our open space is about 4%, which is close to what would be required for R2 zoning. And that's it. That's all I have for you. So if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant? There being none at this time, thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Miller. Madam Clerk, do we have anybody signed up to testify on this application?
Madam Chair, we have some people signed up, the first of which is Jeff Wilding. Jeff is the HOA, is representing an HOA tonight.
Okay.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair and Commissioners. My name is Jeff Wilding. I am the HOA president of the Dunwoody subdivision, and I live at 1842 East Dunwoody Court. I've prepared a small presentation that I would like to work through, some of it a little bit of history, and then some to the narrative that was provided by the Homewood Group. So as you've learned, Lot 26 is the proposed Ambles Run subdivision. Lot 25 is important because during the sale of Lot 25 that was referred to before in 2019, that lot was allegedly split, but that violates our CC&R agreement. Again, I don't expect that you folks will have time to read through all this. I'm not going to read all of the details that are in the black, but it's information that I want you to have. So the Homefront Group suggested that there was an agreement from the Dunwoody subdivision to split those lots in the sale. That was never done. No documentation. Multiple requests for alleged emails approving the lot split have not been produced, and multiple requests from Title I have also produced no evidence on agreement to split that lot. So they still should be under one ownership. This is just a little bit of background for you. Also, within our CC&R document, except for lots 26 and 28, there can be no subdividing, but we do recognize that 26 can be subdivided, and that's what we're talking about tonight, but the resulting lots must contain a minimum of 1 acre. The proposed Ambles Run development, again, violates the CC&R document. And so moving on to the next piece, and this now I've taken the Ambles Run narrative, and there's a few things that I'd like to point out. The Homefront Group claims that lot 26 has been separated from Dunwoody subdivision, and we are wondering how that took place. Mr. Miller did in fact meet with several residents requesting de-annexation from Dunwoody HOA. That motion was presented to the Dunwoody residents, which there are 16, with 14 votes no and 2 in abstention. So how did lot 26 get separated from Dunwoody subdivision? Our position is it has not been separated. In 2007, there was a lot line redraw due to Richard Price building a shop over the top of the lot line between 25 and 26. So it is recorded with the county that that lot line got moved. That's why it's 2.88 acres and not 3 acres. So we recognize that that got moved. However, that does not separate the lots for purposes of selling or for subdividing, and the CC&Rs are still in place. The HOA was not contacted by Title I requesting permission to split the lot. In fact, Dale and Lonnie Hope, who are here tonight, had their own title company working on the sale. And when the issue of splitting lots came up, they were suddenly told that Title I would now be handling that transition. Mr. Miller referred to me to Lisa Britt from Title I to get the alleged documentation, and through several emails and phone calls to Lisa Britt, she informed me that there was nothing in the file, nothing in underwriting, no notes, no documents, or anything mentioned about the CC&R stipulation of splitting that lot. And when pressed, Lisa Britt ceased to return my phone calls. The Homefront Group also claims that a single board member may have granted split of the lot. So when we first talked with the group, they said this was a verbal agreement. And the former HOA president has no knowledge of that verbal agreement, nor is there anything in writing. And so that there was never any business conducted that way. Mr. Miller claimed that in his narrative, claimed that I felt uncomfortable that the previous HOA president had allowed separation of lots, and that's just not true. I never expressed that because that never really happened. So I really challenge Mr. Miller and the Homefront Group and Title I to provide emails that they claim are in existence, granting permission to split the lot. It's in his narrative, so I think it becomes very important. As I've stated before, Mr. Miller did approach the HOA with a proposal of de-annexation of Lot 26, and a vote was taken with 14 votes of no. He also included that he was never asked, or at least the homeowner, not the homeowners, the owner of Lot 26 was never included in that vote. Short-sighted on my part. They don't live there. Usually the votes just go to the people who live there, but it wouldn't have mattered. Even if they would have been there, the vote still would have been no vote. I did suggest to Mr. Miller that he work with the developers of the rest of that area there, that 15 acres, and try to include acre lots, at least along the Dunwoody lot lines, for a higher density as it moved forward to Locust Grove, much in the same manner that Three Corners Ranch on the north side of us has done. All of those lots are 1 acre against Dunwoody, and then they get more dense as they go. And he declined to do that. Also, there's a claim that the HO has agreed to smaller than 1 acre lots for Lot 28, and he actually showed a diagram of that. We have not been approached by that homeowner. I've seen his plan, but we have not been approached to vote on that, nor has that been brought before this group. And so that has not been approved by the HOA. So I'm not sure where he's getting that information. Just a few final points that I'd like to make. Initially, the Hopes did not want to purchase that open space lot. The real estate agent representing Mrs. Miller informed them that the space behind them would be subdivided in 1 acre lots. That helped them feel comfortable with what was going to go in behind them. And so they moved forward with the purchase of their home. When they learned about the proposed Ambles Run development, they offered a very handsome price for that 2.88 acres, and that was declined. Point, Lot 26 has not been de-annexed from Dunwoody subdivision. That cannot be unilaterally done. The vote of the HOA was no. The split of Lot 25 and 26 was not done with any approval, and nobody has provided information that would suggest otherwise. The narrative contains many non-truths and speculations. Under R2 zoning, 1 acre lots may be constructed on that property. And so when Mr. Miller first came to us, he said, I cannot develop it unless I go to R4 zoning. We told him about R2. Now he was going to go to R2. That's great, but he can still put 1 acre lots on that property. So my final point is that the Dunwoody subdivision HOA opposes the plan as presented for Ambles Run, and we would ask that the commission consider our long-standing 30-year-old CC&Rs and help us with that piece of it. That is my presentation, unless the commission has questions.
Do we have any questions for this speaker?
Madam Chair.
Okay. Commissioner Steele.
Just as a question of documentation here, do you have the notes and the vote documents from the HOA meeting that you had?
I don't have them with me, but I do have all of the emails that I can provide that would show us that information. That can be retrieved and presented to you.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Wilding? Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Madam Clerk.
Next, we have Jeff Thompson. He's online. Jeff, one moment, please.
Okay, Mr. Thompson, please state your name and address for the record. And right now, it looks like you need to unmute your side.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is Jeff Thompson. I am at 1970 East Handle Court in the Vienna Woods subdivision. My property touches part of the property in question. So I share a lot line. And so basically just what I wanted to share was my family was involved in the development approved by the City of Meridian for Vienna Woods subdivision. And when we went forth with that project for Vienna Woods, Dunwoody subdivision members were very concerned. And so working through the process with the city, what we ended up having to do, and which I think is a great thing, is we had low density, large lots placed along the east-west border on the north side of that 80 acres that constitutes Vienna Woods. And that was done for and behalf of the Dunwoody concern, to address those concerns from the Dunwoody homeowners and residents. And we also had specifics that were put upon us, or that were agreed to, I should say, that we would do single levels, which is mentioned as part of this plan with this new Ambles Run, but we did single level on certain sections, and then 2 stories were allowed only on certain locations. And they were mandated at a half acre at a very, very minimum point. So that was the smallest we could go along that stretch, east to west. And so I guess my point is, living here now, I've owned 2 homes in this subdivision along that border and have followed and complied with all those things. And we did, of course, in the development as well. But my feeling is that sort of set a precedence of the graduation or the blending of the densities, and seeing that Dunwoody also had that in their CC&Rs of 1 acre lots. It totally fits and totally coincides with what the history that's there, right? That we had with the origination and the approval of the Vienna Woods subdivision. So my testimony is just that I really believe that that either 1 acre or half acre or larger is sort of the precedent that was set by the board and the commission in the past. And I see that only as reasonable moving forward. And not that I am against development. I am not against the development of that property at all. I am for that, but I think it should follow that precedent that's been set. And I also think that kind of density, low density, needs to be followed. And if the CC&Rs are in place, in fact, of the 1 acre, then I think that should be honored. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Anyone else, Madam Clerk?
Madam Chair, next we have Robert Phillips, also online. One moment.
Go ahead, Mr. Phillips. You need to unmute your side and give your name and address for the record. Thank you.
Robert Phillips, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Robert Phillips, 5576 North Chopin Avenue. So my property is a property just to the the south of the proposed subdivision. And by the way, I'm very pro-development. I think development's great. I do have one concern, probably should be brought before council on this matter, which is if the applicant goes forward with his proposed subdivision, and which council or the commission and the council has the right to approve, that doesn't remove the CC&Rs. So you're going to have CC&Rs that restrict it one way, and planning and zoning and council saying a different way. Those CC&Rs don't go away, which means when a person buys the home, their title policy will have accepted out. The CC&Rs will be an exception to that, which means people may be buying homes in that subdivision without valid title insurance. And that could create a real issue. And so I just want to make sure that we're not creating future issues for the neighbors there as it relates to a violation of the CC&Rs that will stay in place after this is approved. So you're going to create a natural conflict there, which isn't resolvable unless this Dunwoody subdivision somehow de-annexes that. So I just think that's a problem that you should make sure you consider when you consider this application. And that was it.
Thank you.
Chair, next we
Anyone
have-
else, Madam Clerk? Okay.
Madam Chair, next we have Susan Rammel.
And is she online or
She's in
coming
house,
forward?
Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Susan Rammel, and my address is 5690 North Locust Grove Road, Meridian, Idaho. My husband, Dale O'Brien, and I have owned the 5 acres that is directly west of the property that's being developed. We've lived there for 31 years and have been involved with all of the subdivisions and things that have gone on. I submitted a comment earlier and would like to read it into the record tonight. I just said the first sentence. My husband, Dale O'Brien, and I, Susan Rammel, own the 5 acres. I'm really not this scared. I sound like I'm going to cry, and I'm really not. Immediately west of the proposed development, Ambles Run subdivision. We ask that the Millers stub a street into the east side of our land. This is important because it will provide an alternate route to enter and exit our property and helps in the long-term maintenance of a road that will connect us to Vienna Woods. A street stub into our acreage also offers an improved design and would better fit with Meridian's planning principles. And we appreciate your consideration. It is not correct that if you put the stub there, it would run into our house. So that is incorrect. We have been working with 3 of our neighbors to try to develop the property that the 5 acres that we own have. And so Mr. Miller knows about those because we've contacted him. I'd also like to ask that the development take steps to limit light pollution to the surrounding area. So, and that's all that I have.
Thank you, Ms. Rammel.
Madam Chair, next we have Dale Hope, who is in-house.
Thank you. My name is Dale Hope. I live at 1985 East Dunwoody Court. And my wife and I purchased a home at that site, which is on the map as Lot 25. And during the sales process, we were informed that the area behind us was limited to 1 acre parcels, which Mr. Wilding expanded on. So I won't go further into that. So it was just part of the sales enticement that we thought was pretty nice about the neighborhood. And we were kind of hoping that it would stay that way. Mr. Miller and his family have stated in their narrative that they are separated from the Dunwoody subdivision as a result of me purchasing lot 25 and the home from them, their family. Well, I don't see how that really makes any sense. We don't agree with that. And the HOA has also said that that does not constitute a separation from the subdivision. So just briefly, I just wanted to say that, you know, Mr. Miller and his family lived in the home for 30 years, which he's conveyed in his message. He enjoyed all the benefits that the CCNRs brought to the neighborhood, which brings a beautiful higher end type neighborhood with open spaces and very appropriate, nice neighborhood. So as they're living there for 30 years, they're enjoying the benefits of the CCNRs. Once they move out, now they want to come to the city and to the neighborhood and the rest of our neighbors and HOA and no longer be bound by the CCNRs, which are clearly in place. And I've talked, and from my understanding, the only way to get out of CCNRs is either through a homeowner association vote, which Mr. Wilding has already done, and the answer is no. And the only other option that I understand to get out of a CCNR is through a civil legal lawsuit, which has not happened yet. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to let the record show that Commissioner Casanelli has joined us at 6:41.
Thank you. Good evening.
We have, sorry, Commissioner Casanelli. Madam Chair, we have Monty Moore who is joining us online. Monty, one moment.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Hi. My name is Monty Moore, and I live at 1921 East Dunwoody Court. I live immediately north of Mr. Hope, Dale Hope, who just testified. I also own 5 acres, and there's a 3-acre agricultural lot, roughly 3-acre agricultural lot that I own immediately north of the Millers. And I'm one of the neighbors who has been talking to Tucker Johnson about putting my property into a development. I've always felt like it would be better to have a one unified whole development rather than piecemeal it. And here after 27 years, I think we're getting close to it. I'm in favor of Mr. Miller developing his part. I am a member of the Dunwoody subdivision and have been privy to discussions among the subdivision people who are owners in the HOA. And I just think what I would like to come to is something that would be reasonable for everybody. I have tried, went to Ada County 2 or 3 years ago and tried to bring in a road or a driveway from Dunwoody so that I could develop my 3 acres. It would just be two lots. And I was turned down. They said, there's no way I can do that. So the only way I can access, if that's still true, the only way I can access my property would be through Mr. Miller's development and then out the other side onto the west end of Dunwoody, which is what we're talking about for our development right now. I have it on good authority. And there may be some who'll disagree, but I do believe that if there's some compromise on the 1 acre issue, that there's a good chance that the Dunwoody subdivision would let us out of the CCNRs and disconnect that property from Dunwoody and allow it to be developed. What I'm doing is I'm going to have lots. I would like to have 4 lots, 3 lots around 3/4 of an acre, and then 1 other smaller lot, just because of the way the road would have to come through. And so what I would hope the Millers would do is on the east edge where the Hopes are, take the 3 lots and bring them down to 2 lots. And I think that the neighbors would then look kindly on this, as that would be a compromise. And I understand you've already compromised from 8 down to 6, but I would like to see you bring that down to 2 lots instead of 3. And my lots will be of similar size. They'll be along the back of my property and the Fillmore's property, large lots, not an acre, but close to it. And I think that we would have consensus at that point. Also, appreciate our past discussions of allowing me to have access through the Millers subdivision into Vienna Woods, so that there's a way for traffic to get to my piece, and some compromise on the access to the Rammel O'Brien property, as Susan Rammel testified earlier. Any questions?
I don't believe so. Thank you.
Chair, that's all that I show signed up in advance.
Okay.
Or with
And
hands raised.
Okay. And is there anyone else on Zoom or in chambers that would like to testify on this application? Okay. All right. Would the applicant like to come and address
Madam Chair,
this? Yes, Madam Clerk.
we did have one person raise their hand in the online audience.
Okay.
That's Dick Price. Dick, one moment, please.
And Mr. Price, you'll need to unmute yourself on your side and please state your name and address for the record. Mr. Price, you're still muted.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Madam Clerk.
it looks like Marissa Price also has their hand raised. I'm going to go out on a limb and say maybe they're together. And if one's
Okay.
having audio issues, let's try Marissa. One moment.
Let's try that.
Well, I think I got it.
Okay. All right. So, Mr. Price, are you and Marissa Price the same testimony here?
Yes, I'm one of the
Okay.
owners of the property. And first of all, I want to say I really respect Dale Hope. I think he's a real good guy. And in our development, I want to make sure that he's a happy camper because he spent a lot of money on his home. When we originally applied for this, we were looking at 4 lots on his side. And I hope it's a compromise that they can live with. We're going to do half-acre lots, which are 3. But I said in our development proposal, I'd only want those homes on his side of the street to be single level or single level with bonus rooms, because I want him to have privacy in his backyard. And I don't want people to be staring at his backyard. And I guess the last thing I'd say, it's just how this has changed since when we bought that property. I used to pheasant hunt in Vienna Woods. When Dunwoody was put in, I mean, it was so rural 30 years ago. And it's just amazing what's happened over the last 30 years. Unfortunately, Meridian just needs place for people to put their homes in. This is just one of them. And I'm just hoping you'll take a look at it in that manner, especially where we're going to try and make Mr. Hope happy and do nice homes and have them single level with bonus rooms on nice size lots. So that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anyone else wish to testify on this application? Okay. All right. Would the applicant like to come forward and
Yes, Madam
discuss any
Chair.
of the issues? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Can you, can I share my screen again?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. Can you see this?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So originally our home here, lot 25, was owned by Maureen Miller and Dick Price, my parents. They separated many years ago. She bought him out of title of that home. So this lot here was held sole and separate by Maureen Miller. The lot we're talking about here, this open space lot, is held in title by Maureen and Dick Price. When Maureen went to sell her home, she had no intention to sell the open space lot. She held title to lot 25, and she put just this up on the market to be sold. The issue of the CC&Rs did come up during that purchase and sale agreement, and title has cleared any issues with the HOA. They had to in order to get prorations for Dale Hope's purchase. We have several emails detailing that. At the time, Mona Tippett, I've blurred out her number, but Mona Tippett was the president of the HOA at that time. And they had a conversation about the CC&Rs, and it says here that Sandy Anderson and Mona Tippett reviewed the CC&Rs on their own and realized you are in compliance because, as you can tell, this was a hot issue at the time. She could not sell both lots. She owned just the residential lot, lot 25. And the HOA was aware of this. It was cleared and the lot was separated. Now that it has been separated, there is no access through Dunwoody. We don't have access to their amenities, and we're clearly not getting a vote in their HOA. We weren't contacted about that. I asked for them to de-annex us to just do that, to approach this subject before we came before you. They were not in favor of that, and then they did not include us in a vote in that. So I don't understand how we could be part of a subdivision that we don't have a vote. Regardless, the best access comes from Meridian through Chopin Avenue. We've compromised on our lots. We went from 8 to 6. And we think that that's a good compromise, a good transition, as staff mentioned. Before we had done any of this, we'd actually offered to sell this property back to Dale Hope. He declined. He didn't want it. And so we went forward. We asked the county if we could develop on it. You can't develop on anything less than 5 acres. So we're here presenting to Meridian in order to get utilities to develop our land, which is the highest and best use for this land. The Western Stub Road, it does run directly into their property. We would put, 2 lots here maybe and 1 here, and it would go directly into that house. It would not function to have lots here and then here, and then double frontage here. I appreciate the other neighbors wanting to develop. This is their plan. We did not have an agreement about that plan. There's an island here of homes, maybe 200 feet by 200 feet surrounded by asphalt. We don't think that's a good transition between Vienna Woods and Dunwoody. We think the best route is to go north, directly into Monty's property like he's proposed with his 4 lots. The transition looks good between these 2. Then they can go west, and then they could do an open space lot or here. But at the end of the day, we're here to present you our project, which we think is a good plan. We have decreased our density and requests to the neighborhood. We've been continually, that's why it's taken us 6 months. We've continually tried to work this project to make sure that all of the concerned parties have been navigated. With that being said, we think that this is going to be a very good option, a very good plan for this piece. And we are opening the doorway by developing for the neighbors to continue with their options. Thank you very much.
Any questions for the applicant? Okay. With that, then,
Madam
could I
Chair.
get, yes.
This is Stephen Yearsley.
Yes, Commissioner Yearsley.
Given that there's a struggle between the 2 subdivisions with regards to the CC&Rs, I wonder if maybe Andrea could respond. Before we close public hearing, I wouldn't mind having the applicant to comment on this, but my concern is how do we proceed with this if there's a discrepancy in the CC, with their CCNRs, which is not by us, but is there an issue proceeding, I guess, with this?
The issue would be with the title company who's insured the sale. We've cleared that. They cleared it through the HOA. That's part of their due diligence. On top of that, we have emails saying that the HOA knew about it and they've reviewed it and we're in compliance. And now 2 years later that we want to develop, there's a different president, and I appreciate Jeff Wilding's testimony. He was open working with us. When he suggested R2, we decreased to R2 or changed our request to R2. But the president at the time, Mona Tippett, and Sandy Anderson, who's on that board, knew about that, and they allowed the separation of lots. And now this parcel has been separated. The best use for it is development, and there are no issues with the CCNRs.
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
Thank you.
I think we're wanting to hear from our legal counsel here with us this evening from the City of Meridian.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Yearsley, this is Andrea Pogue. Basically, this is a private dispute. Doesn't involve the city. The applicant is acting at his own risk. He could choose to withdraw the application and deal with the dispute, or he could proceed as he's doing tonight, indicating he wants to come in if you approve it, and he could get sued. And it's a private matter. It's a private dispute with regard to the CCNRs. So, Commissioner Yearsley, the decision's before you. This is an annexation. It's within your purview to decide if you're comfortable, not comfortable, if it doesn't seem like it's the right time, given that there are other property owners looking to develop as well, and maybe you might want to consider the timing of this parcel's development versus those. You might want to there's just a lot of considerations for you. I think the least of which is this private dispute matter.
Okay.
Evaluate the project on its own merits. It's the applicant's risk. I know in the past this commission has decided with very similar private dispute brewing amongst neighbors. You continued the matter to try and give the applicant a chance to work through the dispute, come back with resolution or further proof if you are concerned there's lacking in proof that the lot was successfully split, or any other issues that might bear on the decision of the merits of this application. There might be grounds to continue tonight, but if there also, you may want to make a decision and move it up one way or another to council to review. So that's my basic comments, Commissioner Yearsley. It's a private dispute. I can't give legal advice. I'm neither one of their attorneys. I'm just learning of this for the first time tonight, so I can't say more than I have.
Okay, and that's what I was just asking for is that's kind of what my thought was as well, that it's personal between the two the association and the homeowner or the property owner. And I didn't know if we had any legal standing on it as well. So thanks for the clarification.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant?
Madam Chair?
Commissioner Seal.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to ask the same thing that I asked of the current HOA president, which is the email that was produced looked like it is of the former president of the HOA. It doesn't look like any voting statistics or anything were taken on that, or voting minutes were taken on that. Can either side produce the meeting minutes from that, where that decision was come to?
No, sir.
Was that a no?
Yeah, we just have the emails. There was no official documentation of the votes. We just have emails documenting the exchange between the HOA and ourselves and the allowance of us to separate.
So you can understand where the dilemma is, where we have this is one person's word against, you know, an HOA. And I personally, yeah, I was going to say, I personally take issue with that. After serving in HOAs and being met with, you know, powerless decisions sometimes in order to continue on because things like this take place, I think that there is some kind of burden to produce some kind of factual evidence that shows that at least a vote took place and something like that transpired, personally.
Sure. We have several emails documenting the exchange between us and the title company. So
I understand that, and that's why a title company does what it does. It's their bill to burden if something comes back on this. So the legality of it is something that I don't think has been fleshed out completely, even if it is a private matter between homeowners.
Madam Chair.
Who was it? Is that Joe?
No problem. To touch on this further, and what our council has said, it is a private matter in the sense of whether the lot was legally split as far as land records that occurred. There is a lot line adjustment record of survey that occurred. Whether that happened and the HOA allowed it, that is a civil matter. That's not in the city's purview. What's before us, whether or not the lot was legally split and can be developed separate of lot 25, that exists. And it is my understanding from previous conversations and previous decisions by council and legal determinations, again, not our council, because we can't make these types of decisions for civil matters, is that it is a civil matter. And once the city annexes a piece of land, those former county CC&Rs no longer apply to this property. It applies, the city zoning applies. So again, that legal portion of that is not handled within the city realm. It should be handled in the civic realm. It's a civil issue, not a city issue.
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
Yes, I understand that, but I mean, part of the issue that I have is we have a Mr. Moore, Mr. Miller, Mr. Fillmore, Mr. and Mrs. Rommel, and Mr. Price involved in this, who are either part of or have been part of the subdivision, who want to develop this entire thing. And it all hinges on the subdivision they are either part of or have been part of. So I lack understanding as to why they cannot come to an agreement on how to develop this entire parcel. And I think that that's something that we should, as people that are going to see this come into the city, foster in good faith.
Okay.
Chair.
If there's,
Madam Chair, this is Adrienne.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
I did have one person identify themselves by raising their hand in the audience. I wanted to give you the opportunity to address that.
How does the commission feel on it? Do we want to hear more testimony, or are we ready to move forward as the applicant has already come back and spoken?
Madam Chair, this is Andrea.
Yes.
I would recommend the commission continue.
Move forward. Yeah. This is, yeah, we can't keep debating this with the members of the audience at this time. I would recommend, since the applicant has already spoken, that we close the public hearing and move on to our discussions. And on that note, could I,
Madam Chair,
if there's, yeah.
Move that we close the public hearing for Ambles Run subdivision H 2020-0124.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to close the public hearing on H-2020-0124. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now we can continue the discussion. Where would you like to pick up?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Grove.
my initial inclination is to move towards continuance to allow more time and see if further discussion among the neighbors and potential developers could come to a solution. If not, and then, you know, I think we could take another look at it, but that would be my first impression of this, similar to what we saw a while back with a subdivision development off of Black Cat and Chinden, just to allow a little bit more dialogue to occur.
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of dialogue, but I hate to get in the middle of a civil matter when just annexing this part into the city could actually make the decision for them, it sounds like, because then it would no longer be part of the county.
Madam Chair, for me, it's not just the CC&R piece, it's also the other developing piece, and making sure that they're on the same page with how they want to develop so that it's more of a unified vision, and less piecemeal.
Yeah. Okay. Other thoughts, commissioners? Stephen, you came off. Commissioner Yearsley and Commissioner Casanelli are off mute.
You know, thank you. You know, I don't know where to go with this. I think on its own merits, I think it looks like a really nice subdivision. I like the size, you know. I don't think that the association is going to want to compromise the way it sounds from the applicant or from the HOA president. And I think, you know, maybe giving them a couple of weeks to talk to the other homeowners to see if they want to include in that development. I do recognize that the developer's current, you know, has been working on this since August, and so he's probably anxious to try to get into this building season so he can get his lot sold and move forward. I would have a tendency to, you know, he gave them, you know, there is opportunities for them to come in and still meet, you know, lot sizes and have a decent development through that property. I'm inclined to move it forward.
Okay. And in moving it forward, you like it as is?
I do. I like the subdivision. I think it's a nice size. If it was south of Meridian or the interstate, I'd actually consider looking at one of the lots, but so no, I think it stands good on its own merits.
Thank you. Commissioner Casanelli, you're off mute.
Oh, I'm just off mute. I will say that I'm gonna just because I missed some of the dialogue here and I'm not totally up on what was going on before I joined, I'm gonna abstain, but
okay.
I'm just my thoughts on it. It's, you know, I mean, to go into R2, you're not usually going to get a complaint from me on R2. You know, things that I typically like to see are good transition. The way it's shaped and the road's got to go in, that's not, you know, it's that thing could turn 90 degrees, but I missed the conversation with the CC, okay, with that, but you know, all in all, I like it. I'd like to see how it's going to future develop with the other parcels around it. But as I said, I'm going to have to abstain from from the vote on this.
Thank you. Commissioner Seal, Commissioner Lorcher, thoughts?
Madam Chair, I mean, I've shared quite a few thoughts. I'm more with Commissioner Grove on this simply because if it wasn't all the property owners involved in this that are all part of or have been part of the subdivision that's, having the issue with this, I would say, it would be more likely that I would want to move it along, but all of these people are part of or have been part of that same subdivision. And, again, I hate it when HOA stuff gets stepped on, because HOAs are sometimes, as much as they are the butt of a lot of jokes, they are often left powerless to do anything against something like this, because of the movement or the wording or communication of one person. I've seen this happen in subdivisions I live in, and I'm not a fan of it. I think that what Commissioner Grove reflected on as far as having a more complete vision for the entire area would be helpful for everybody involved. Instead of tearing everything apart, it would help things come together a little bit more. As far as the project on its own, I'm with Commissioner Yearsley. I mean, I live close to this, so if my wife and I are looking for a piece of property in Meridian, this is one of them I would look at for sure. I mean, based on what it is and where it is, if it were to go forward. That said, I just don't think that, I think that they would be better off to have a more complete vision, a more complete plan of everything that's going to develop in here before it moves forward.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Lorcher?
The only thing I'm uncomfortable with is what Andy said with CCNRs and HOA. If we don't respect them, then why should they be there in the first place? We just kind of pick and choose the rules that we want. So I think until the developer and the HOA feel a little bit more comfortable with each other to be good neighbors, I would probably be more favored for a continuance. It has nothing to do with the subdivision. I think it's what their plans are is lovely, but it was also pointed out that it's going to be piecemeal putting it all together too. So how will they all be good neighbors?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I guess my thoughts are that I think on its own, it's a nice subdivision. I think the 3 lots, you could do 2 or 3 there. I think that's making a nice transition as it is, but yeah, I agree. I'd like some proof one way or the other on, and not just one email, some title company proof or something, before we move forward on this. If they come forward with that, that would be helpful. Yeah, because I don't think, stubbing the street to the west, if we were just looking at this on its own, I think the layout that they've shown is good and would go forward in the future in a logical pattern. But yeah, I would say there needs to be some clarity on whether this is still part of the HOA or not.
Madam Chair.
Joe.
Thank you, ma'am. I just wanted to, obviously I assume the applicant would prefer a continuance over a recommendation of denial, but I don't know what a continuance will do in favor of the applicant or in favor of the application, just because I know they've already worked with the HOA for a while, and I know that the HOA is, obviously because of what they've talked about, is going to want the minimum 1 acre lot sizes, which with Meridian zoning is not a requirement. So we're still going to run into this issue of, do the CCNRs have legal power to limit them to 1 acre lots? And so that's why I don't know if the applicant and the HOA will ever reach an agreement, as Commissioner Yearsley noted. So I just wanted to point that out, that those discussions have already occurred. I don't know if the applicant would still like to try to continue it out and do that again. But from what I have understood, that issue is still going to come up. And we'll be right back here talking about this again in a month or 2 weeks.
Yeah, Madam Chair, this is Bill.
Yes.
I just want to share some of the conversations that I had with the surrounding neighbors with you as well, because I met with the HOA president and we went through a bunch of different scenarios. And I shared a lot of the same things that you had talked about. Joe and I shared the same concerns with Mr. Miller. And I tend to agree with Commissioner Yearsley that we may not be able to get to a resolution in 2 weeks or even a month. So I don't know what it gains us to continue the project, but again, that's within your purview. But I do know that everyone, at least speaking with Mr. Miller and speaking with the HOA rep, they're very amenable to working together and trying to get this resolved. At some point, at the end of the day, they may not get to that point, but they do. The applicant does have 30 days from tonight's hearing to city council. And I know you guys have always been, I don't know if generous is the right word, but at least acknowledge that there may be an opportunity for them to work that out as they transition towards a city council hearing. So if you continue the project 2 more weeks, certainly you may not have a resolution. But if you moved it along to city council with the applicant and the HOA working together, hopefully, again, everyone wants a nice development around them. And that's the impression that I've got in my discussions with both parties. So I think they're mature adults. I think they can get to a consensus and work this thing out. So I would, if it's your purview, certainly you have the option to include in your motion that they continue to have that resolved as they transition to city council. But that's, at least I wanted to give you some commentary that you have the ability to do that, to move this on with them working that out. Because I'm with you. From my experience with the city, we don't get a lot of R2 lots. And that's what I'm just going to share with the Dunwoody residents out there is there's only been one R2 development or maybe 2 since I've been with the city in 14 years. And this is potentially the number 3. So it is something that a lot of developers don't take advantage of. And I know past mayors and past council members have wanted to see more of that, particularly in South Meridian and North Meridian. So again, I have to commend the applicant for even coming for at least trying to make that attempt, losing some lots and coming in with a 0.4 of an acre, almost half an acre lot size next to county residents. We typically don't see that type of transition. And then also restricted to single story, which is also, I think, another win for Dunwoody. So I would just encourage them to continue working this out as they move through the hearing process. And if either side has any additional questions of staff, they can certainly reach out to us and we can have those further discussions with them.
Thank you. Yeah. So with that, I'm not sure if we're ready for, if somebody wants to take a stab at a motion one way or the other. I tend to agree. I think with as much discussion as was brought to us, I think it's obvious that the applicant and the neighbors have had numerous discussions. And I think at this point to move it along, but with notes to city council that of what our thoughts are as far as being respectful of the potential HOAs. But that's, we'll take a motion and a stab at it. I'll give you a few minutes to see who wants to make the motion and what motion that would be.
So Madam Chair, this is Stephen Yearsley. I trying to remember, was there a from staff recommend changes to the staff report that they recommended? I remember him talking about that, but I can't remember what it was.
I believe he was Joe was in agreement to strike the road stub to the west. So that it would be just basically the picture that we got.
Okay. Madam Chair.
Commissioner Yearsley.
Give me a second and I will make a motion. After considering all staff, applicant, and public testimony, I move to recommend approval to City Council of file number H 2020-0124, if I'm right, yeah, 124, as presented in the staff report for the hearing date of February 18, 2021, with the following modifications: that to strike the condition to connect a road stub to the west.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Grove.
Commissioner, usually could we add in a condition that the applicant continue discussions with the neighbors concerning future development to the north and west?
Absolutely, I would be agreeable to that.
That's the case, I second.
Okay. It has been moved and seconded to approve H-2020-0124. And I believe we will take a roll call vote.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Grove,
Aye.
Commissioner Yearsley,
Aye.
Commissioner Lorcher,
Nay.
Commissioner Seal,
Nay.
Commissioner Casanelli. I'm sorry, you've abstained. Is that
I'm
correct?
saying yes.
Thank you. Commissioner McCarville.
Aye. Okay, well, motion passes. And I believe, yes, City Council will have all of our notes and we'll move on from there. In that case, we will move on to the public hearing for H-2020-0100 Compass Point subdivision. And we'll begin with the staff report.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. As noted, the next one is Compass Point subdivision. It is located in the southwest corner. Right, yes, that's west. Southwest corner of Locust Grove and Victory Road. Site consists of 7.69 acres of land. And the project was first heard by Planning and Zoning Commission in December 3rd of last year. The commission recommended denial of the project at that time. Following this recommendation, the applicant made a request to the council to be remanded back to P&Z with a revised plat and open space pursuant to the comments made within the staff report as well as by the commissioners. The city council agreed with this request and remanded the project back. That's why we are here tonight. The main changes made by the applicant following that recommendation of denial related to the number of units, the road layout, the amount of usable open space, and the applicant is also no longer requesting a planned unit development. Therefore, the applicant is requesting annexation and zoning of 7.69 acres of land with a request for R15 zoning, a preliminary plat consisting of 38 lots, building lots, and 10 common lots on approximately 4.69 acres, and then private streets for the road access for the development. That also requires an alternative compliance request because the private streets will connect directly to an arterial street. The proposed uses are all single family residential, but in multiple forms. Attached townhomes, which are triplexes, attached duplexes, and 4 single family detached homes as well. The project is proposed with a density of 4.94 dwelling units per acre and a net density of 9.8 dwelling units per acre, which is lower than the previous submittal. The applicant is proposing to construct private streets within the development as 24 feet wide with 5-foot attached sidewalk on at least one side of the street throughout the project. As seen, the main thoroughfare through the site has sidewalk on both sides of the street, which is not required with private streets. At the north end of the main street within the development, which is labeled as Compass Lane, the applicant is proposing an emergency-only access out to Victory Road. This access is required if more than 30 homes are to be constructed. The proposed access for this development is to Locust Grove and lines up with East Coastline Street on the east side of Locust Grove, which is the access into the Tradewinds subdivision and a future subdivision further east of that. Yes, the access point into the development does not meet ACHD district policy, but they are modifying their policy to accommodate the access, as this is the only place that they can take access. If they took access off of Victory, it would be even less compliant with ACHD policy as to the acute triangle we have here. Therefore, again, ACHD is modifying their policies to allow this access, as it is the most logical and safest place for an access to Locust Grove. There are no other public streets stubbed to this property from anywhere, mostly because the abutting site constraints, which are the 2 arterial streets and the 10 Mile Creek, which there is no bridge or even a pedestrian bridge over the creek. The site, as I noted, is a triangle shape bordered on 2 sides by the arterial streets and the 10 Mile Creek. As noted again, there's no opportunity for future road connectivity, and that's why ACHD and the city find it applicable for private streets to be used within the development. City code requires that private streets are to be used in either a MU or gated community. The applicant has proposed a gate, which can be seen here, sort of, that meets code requirements and exceeds the distance away from the right-of-way as required. Code requires minimum 50 feet. This is well within that. Well beyond that. There's a gray area here. Staff did recommend changing this to a turnaround instead of the parking. So basically remove the parking and allow this area to be a turnaround area in case people accidentally pull into the subdivision, pull into this access and cannot turn around adequately on the private street, and they can't get through the gate because they're not part of the community. The applicant did submit revised plans showing this, which staff does appreciate. The proposed private streets are not wide enough to accommodate any on-street parking, as they are only 24 feet wide. However, the applicant is proposing to construct additional off-street parking along the main street as seen on the plat. There are no multi-use pathways proposed or required with the development. However, the applicant is proposing a 5-foot wide pathway on this side of the creek and behind the proposed homes. This pathway connects to private streets at the southern end of the project and through the common open space lot in the center of the development, as well as north closer to Victory. Staff recommend an additional pedestrian connection to the sidewalks, the arterial sidewalks, specifically that on Locust Grove, be constructed from the revised layout, which is here, this new loop, connect those sidewalks there, which as seen, the applicant has done that with their revised plans. There is no existing sidewalk along Victory or Locust Grove. Both arterial streets are scheduled to be widened as part of the roundabout project at this intersection beginning this year. According to ACHD, with the roundabout project, the applicant is required to dedicate additional right-of-way for the intersection and future widening of both roads. ACHD is requiring the applicant to enter into a road trust for the sidewalk improvements, the arterial sidewalk improvements that are adjacent to the site, since they will be constructed with the widening project, and would, if they were constructed with this project, they'd end up being torn out, and then we'd be spending duplicate money. I wanted to show you this map here, which I usually don't show for commission, but just to show when the timeline is for all of this. It has also come to my attention that the intersection project for the roundabout, Victory and Locust Grove, does extend all the way south to the bridge, which abuts the bridge over the 10 Mile Creek, which abuts the property directly to the south. And that bridge will also be widened, which should help with a lot of different pedestrian safety issues along the bridge there that gets very skinny. A minimum of 10% qualified open space meeting UDC standards is required. According to the property size, the applicant should supply at least 0.77 acres of qualified open space, or approximately 33,500 square feet. The applicant is proposing 3.9 acres of open space. of which 3.4 is shown as qualifying on their submitted open space exhibit, which is obviously vastly more than the minimum requirement. However, some of the area listed on the open space exhibit by the applicant as qualifying does not meet UDC standards due to there not being those areas not being at least 5,000 square feet or not being anywhere near the 50 by 100 dimensions. So staff does have some discretion as to whether we need every single qualified open space to be exactly 50 by 100 at least, or if there are some odd shapes, allowing those to be qualified if they are greater than 5,000 square feet. For example, the open space lot surrounding this is not very usable because it abuts an arterial and has parking and homes. So staff finds that that area is not qualifying, but this area is because it is over 5,000 square feet and is more usable in a safer area for residents. Once the areas are removed from the qualified open space exhibit that are not qualifying, the qualified open space is approximately 2.97 acres. More importantly, the open space for this development is largely made up of the 10 Mile Creek, which is over 2 acres in size, and the arterial street buffers, which are 19,000 square feet of qualifying area. All of this area is qualifying, but the 10 Mile Creek will be left natural and will be a buffer and more of a visual amenity than usable open space. Abutting the creek and generally mid-block with a micropath through it, the applicant is proposing an open space lot that is approximately 5,700 square feet. It contains one set of the amenities and the micropath as noted, and connects to the private street sidewalks, as well as to the open space lot directly east of it, as noted before here. The 5,700 square foot open space lot is the most active and usable open space lot within the development. In general, the applicant has increased the usable open space areas throughout the site following the commission's recommendation of denial. With the reduction in unit count and additional centralized open space, staff finds the proposed open space not only in excess of code, but also as an improvement from previous layouts. The applicant submitted conceptual elevations for the proposed attached single-family homes for both the duplexes and the triplexes. They're not required for the detached single-family homes. They do not require design review. The submitted elevations show all 2-story attached structures with 2-car garages and finishing materials of wood and stone, as well as stucco. In addition, the elevations show modern architecture with shed roofs, second-story patios with glass railings and stone accents that go from grade all the way to the roof line, which is actually pretty uncommon. Attached single-family homes do require design review prior to obtaining building permits. Therefore, staff will ensure compliance with the Architectural Standards Manual when those applications are submitted. Since the previous meeting, the applicant has provided conceptual elevations of the proposed units offering different designs and color combinations than previously seen. There were 41 pieces of written testimony submitted for the project the first time this came through, and the general concerns were regarding the proposed density, the amount of open space, school overcrowding, and traffic issues with additional homes in this area. The neighborhood also had issues with the proposed access to Lucas Grove and there only being one access for the development, which I hope I answered sufficiently due to there not being any other place to access this. After I sent the outline, there were a few pieces of public testimony that outlined some of the same issues as well from neighbors. With all these comments and notes, staff does recommend approval of the subject applications with the conditions listed and with the inclusion or requirement, I should say, of a DA and those provisions within the staff report. And I will stand for questions.
Any questions for staff?
Madam Chair.
Okay, Commissioner Grove.
Joe, with the revised plan, I hadn't seen that until just now. Did that significantly change anything in your report? It does look like a bit different with that central island and then some of the open space that they've used.
Commissioner Grove, as far as numbers and data, no, nothing that's going to make them non-compliant, that's for sure. All of the proposed lot sizes still meet the minimum dimensional standards. And it did reorient the lots in the center, which frankly, I think is an improvement and kind of breaks up the monotony of all of that. They're not all going the same direction now. It did reduce that central open space lot here just slightly, but I didn't touch on this enough the first time through, but there are no fences between any of these homes. So it will look and function a lot more like a multifamily project in the sense that there's none of this area, can't find my pointer, none of this area will be fenced off. They will just have the open patios. So all of this area will still technically be out there and open with landscaping. But I guess, sorry, I'm rambling. In short, no, it shouldn't affect anything. And they actually responded to all of my conditions of approval.
Okay. Any other questions?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Casanelli.
Joe, does the density fit with the current R8 in there, or is this or does it fit with R15?
Mr. Casanelli, the density is tied to the future land use, not the zoning. And it is 3 to 8 dwelling units per acre, and it's actually on the lower half of that now with the reduced lot sizes, at least in gross. Again, that's what our densities are based off of. The net density, when you take out the creek and you take out the roads and the arterial buffers, it does bump it up to 9.8 or so, I think I said, which is still significantly less than what it was, which is in response to a lot of the comments received the first time through.
Okay, but the gross density is it's tied to the gross, not the net?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then also had another question. You were mentioning on the private streets, the Muse. Can you reiterate those comments and how those tie together?
Yes, sir. Commissioner Casanelli, members of the commission. So when you have a private street application, the code requires that the development be either a MU development or a gated community. This applicant chose to go with the gated community as a private street development. So they meet the code and at the director level are approved for the private streets. The MUs, for those who do not know, are like paseos or vistas through units. Theoretically, you could say they have the MU here, but usually they're wider and more active than this. But other than that, they don't have MUs, and that's okay because they have the gate, and that makes them compliant with code.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Would the applicant like to speak?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes. Please state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, let me share my screen real quick, if I may. It says I can't start screen share.
Madam Clerk, do we need to give him extra permission for that?
We just stopped screen sharing on our end. It should update now.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Go ahead and try again.
Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, my name's Steve Arnold. I'm with 18 Land Consultants. Business address is 1785 Whisper Cove, Boise 83709. I'd kind of like I'll go into some of the larger elements of our redesign, and then I'll get into a lot of the specifics of what we did change up. It was stated that we're asking for 38 lots, but when we made this change here, I'm assuming you can see my arrow.
Yes.
Once we did this, this was a staff recommendation to get rid of the two dead end streets here. So as soon as we did that, it caused us to lose a lot. So what you have before you tonight is 37 lots. So this was the main change after we submitted to the city, and we agreed with staff to do that along with turnarounds, the gate, and all the additional sidewalk changes. That was probably the most significant, along with dropping down from 48 to 37 lots. Again, this was the original that the Planning and Zoning Commission denied. And again, we went to City Council and asked to be remanded back to staff. This, I know one of the concerns was that we were going to get a lot of massing of buildings along the front. So one of the things we did is basically wiggle or make S curves in the road. And that really changed the massing of the buildings. And again, as Joe stated, this project will come back before the commission, the council, as a design review, or I believe that might even be staff level. So this is at the entrance off of Locust Grove, looking north, to give you an idea of the way it's going to look with the massing. And notice we got rid of the ugly orange, so that's not being proposed. Actually, that was a mistake that we had submitted. All of the earth tones will be used in here. This is an image from the northern side looking south. And this also gives you another representation of how our building orientation is going to look. And you can see that one of the things that staff was looking for was our crosswalks, and that there's a condition in there that Joe and I spoke about earlier that we're looking to get modified. This is a view just kind of looking north, kind of in the center of the project, to give you an idea of the park and how it is going to orient. But again, it also gives you some feel of how the buildings are and how the massing is going to change with the different meandering of the road. Here is in the park looking east towards the opposite side park. Again, you can see the raised crosswalks that we'll have, and then the different massing of the buildings. Excuse me. We've read through all of the conditions of approval, and we have concurred with staff. And actually, the revised maps that got sent to staff today has incorporated all the requested changes. One change to a couple conditions, and we're not asking that they be deleted, but I think they were, after talking with staff, these were the changes that we've kind of agreed to. The top condition states, all sidewalks end. Well, I think that was a mistake, or maybe not intended. That so in speaking with staff, we're requesting that it be all pedestrian crossings within the subdivision be constructed with either pavers, stamped concrete, or raised striped asphalt, or similar to clearly delineate. So it's essentially, we're going to do normal sidewalk, and then at the crossings, we'll have something that delineates them. And then it's also stated in this other condition. So again, we're just asking that it be associated just with the crossings. Here's basically all of the modifications to the map from the last time that you guys reviewed this. Our building lots went from 48 to 37 lots. The density, again, that's the gross density, went from 6.24 to 4.8. And in doing so, we eliminated the request for the building setback reduction and the need for a PUD. We also increased the housing variety. So when we wiggled the road around, we got rid of the majority of the triplexes on the east side of Compass Lane. So we increased with some single families and some towns throughout the entire project. And actually, there is a place where I think we can actually include, without losing anything, 2 more single families. So we're going to probably end up breaking up one of the duplexes. And one of the things that was brought up at our original meeting, it looked like a couple of our lots were an afterthought, or I guess the buildings were an afterthought. So we got rid of those odd shaped housing units. I could, if you don't mind, I'll scroll up real quick. So these areas here and right here, we eliminated. So we got rid of those types. We increased our open space, just like Joe said, and it went from 35 to 0.68% with nearly 3 acres of qualified for, and which is 44. We went from 35 to 44%. With the increase of open space, we did add the dog park to the north and an additional central park, as noted by staff. Roadways, we eliminated the 2-end and created a lollipop, or what is also known as a loop roadway design. And then again, we added the S-turns in the north-south road and breaking up the massing. Sidewalk, which was, we went from 2,094 feet to 3,205.5 feet, which I've stated before in front of several commissions. Sidewalk is your most used amenity in any subdivision. So we really focused on our connectivity, the sidewalk along the 10 Mile Creek, which, by the way, you know, it's we had concerns or neighborhood concerns about the safety of children. Well, as a condition, we are going to put 4-foot open vision fencing on the west side of that pathway to decrease those concerns. And again, as noted, we added the gated entry and added a turnaround at the gate as requested, and added pedestrian crossings so that we can get clear pedestrian circulations throughout the development. So basically, all the requested changes from staff in the staff report, we have met. There are maps that were sent out today. I guess in conclusion, you guys have seen this project once before. We believe it conforms to the city code and the comp plan, and we've basically made all the staff recommended changes. We've taken in the neighborhood concerns about the density and greatly reduced it from 50 to 48, now down to 37. Something to keep in mind, and I know Joe's touched basically a little bit on it, but the zoning request is not for the density. We are kind of at the low end of the R8 zoning designation density, but the zoning is mainly so that we can create smaller lots and still have an open field with the adjacent landscaping, but go down to those reduced dimensional setbacks so that we can get this product type that we're putting there. There's been, I know in the neighbors or the last meeting, there was a lot of discussion about multifamily housing. Well, the whole idea of why we're doing this, the way we're doing it on their own lot. So each home will be on their own lot and have the ability to be sold off. So these aren't multifamily, these are for sale. We believe it to be compatible, especially with the 10 Mile Creek being a divider and all of the adjacent roadways around us. I believe we got most of your concerns from our previous meeting and made the changes to the maps accordingly. One of the big one was open space. That was a concern back in December, and we've, as stated by staff, it's been greatly increased. And something to keep in mind, the developer here is the builder and will be building the units for sale. So it's the who of them to build a quality product because they're in this until the unit sells. So we plan on putting a nice quality home, as you've seen by some of the images, minus the color. But our plan is to build nice qualities. The square foot of the homes will actually be very compatible with what is in the surrounding area. The only thing that is different is, again, we're putting it on a smaller lot, and that smaller lot will be owned and maintained by the HOA. So we'll have conformity of landscape maintenance, etc. This is, again, we're providing a mix of housing type, which is consistent comprehensive plan policies. We got single family townhomes and triplexes, which we believe is in huge demand. Our housing market right now, we also work in the field of real estate, but our housing market, the real estate and the demand that's occurring right now is kind of scary because we're actually pricing all of our local people out, and it's because there isn't a demand. So we believe that this product type is in a huge demand and the area needs it. We are dealing, as staff has stated, with a very difficult site. It's got a lot of constraints with the roundabout, the 10 Mile Creek, and the other arterial roads. We believe we've hit the highest and best use for it. We've tried to meet all of staff's recommendations, and we've tried to meet all of the commission's concerns in our modification. In that, we'll ask for approval and I'll stand for questions.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Seal.
can we see the amendments that you wanted to make to the staff report? Just like to see that slide one more time. Yep, you just leave that up. That would be perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant?
Madam Chair.
Okay. Yeah, Commissioner Casanelli.
And I know I want to see those. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to see that slide. I'm wondering, Steve, if you could put a plat map up, or if you don't have it, staff, if you have that.
I can pull this up.
Okay. Was there, the fire department was okay with turnaround access, but I'm looking at that at the dead end there to the upper right. What about trash access there? Is there a central trash, or is it individual cans?
They're going to be individual cans.
Is there going to be a, that's not a turnaround, that's parking up there. Is that correct? That little cutout?
Yes, that is proposed as parking.
So is the trash, will they be able to maneuver up in there?
They will back up a maximum of 150 feet, which is the same with fire. And that's what we've got here. We also could require these homeowners to bring their garbage out over on this side, if it's the commission's direction, to lessen the distance that they back.
And then finally, if I could, how much those parking cutouts, it looks like there's 2 of them. How many spots total do you have set up for that remote parking?
Boy, it's on my plat. I don't know how to.
Commissioner Casanelli, it should be 9 with the removal of the ones outside of the gate.
Correct.
10.
Nine spots in interior. Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
Madam Chairman, Commissioner. But there was a staff requirement, and I apologize. I think we missed one of your requirements, Joe, that I believe you asked for additional parking in here.
That is correct. We're at the one further south. I said you have room to add more along that. The one that has the 6, you can add at least 2 more.
And we'll comply with that.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Lorcher.
Mr. Arnold, along the 10 Mile Creek, just so I'm seeing this right, so are those backyards with a fence going across it? Or is that the front of the house with landscaping? I'm not. So are the driveways in front?
Madam Chair, Commissioner, yes, the driveways are in front. Our thought here initially would be just to have a fence on the west side of this pathway, and it would be an open field in a backyard.
And would it be a solid fence, or what? I think you said it was going to be like a wrought iron fence so they can see through or not see through?
Yeah, see through.
Okay. So they'll be able to see through to whatever this space is that the irrigation company maintains in 10 Mile Creek. Is that right?
That's correct.
And then just out of curiosity, what's on the other side? Are those existing homes?
These are existing homes. That's correct.
And what kind of, do you know what kind of fencing they have? Is it solid or is it?
It's a wooden fence here and a chain link fence here.
Okay.
And this is a 6 foot here, and I believe this is about a 5 foot chain link.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Joe.
Sorry, thank you. Commissioner Lorcher, just to give you a little more background on that too, the code requires that the fencing along the creek be open vision, so that there is added safety to, if somebody falls in or anything like that, you can see, as well as it's what the irrigation district wants as well. They don't want any kind of 6 foot fence abutting their easement. So that's why our requirement is 4 foot wrought iron.
Thank you.
Open vision, whatever that might be. Material.
Okay.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, Madam Clerk, do we have anybody signed up to testify on this application?
Madam Chair, we do. In-house, we have Rhonda Unruh.
Okay. Please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Thank you. My name is Rhonda Unruh, and I'm at 3246 South Merlot Way.
Okay. The floor is yours.
Rhonda Unruh at 3246 South Merlot Way.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman, and the rest of the council members. I did not see the new plat map that came out. I have printed out a previous aerial map before they changed. And I was going to make the point, but that's been changed a little bit, that when you look at this aerial map and the previous plat map, it looks as if this is the last piece of property in Meridian, and we're trying to cram as much as we can so that we can accommodate the growth of Meridian. And by doing that, I don't know if any of you have ever driven through that intersection in the morning or in the afternoon, but that is a very high traffic area. It's backed up on all 4 roads. And the thought of putting this many more cars on one exit and entryway, trying to get into traffic that's sitting there already, doesn't make sense to me. And that's not even mentioning the northwest corner that has a proposed development there. That one I don't have a problem with, because for the acreage that's there, and the proposed amount of residential units that are being built there, it makes sense and it works with the future planning of a circle. But by jamming all of these here in an area, and as the developer was mentioning himself, now what do you do with trash? What do you do with the fire trucks if there's an emergency? Well, they have to go in and they got to back up. I don't see the safety being addressed here. In several of those points, I have many others, but no time. With this new proposal he's just showed tonight, I do have a question. Does this bring this down from an R15 high density to what we're calling a medium high density? If it's still considered high density, I went on to the City of Meridian, their premier community, the website that describes what a premier community is and what we would like for the City of Meridian. And yes, we do want diversity in our neighborhoods, but it does state immediately after that description, and I quote, "High density housing must be strategically located to public transportation, community services, and employment areas," end quote. If this is still considered a high density housing, when you look at the map of this area, we don't have any of that in this vicinity. So to me, this says an R15 doesn't fit here according to what is written in your own premier community site. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, do we have anybody else signed up to testify?
Madam Chair, next is Stan Unruh.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Stan Unruh. Address is 3246 South Merlot Way in Meridian. You might have guessed I'm related to the previous person. I just wanted to touch on a point that she made about the traffic, and I wondered if it's possible to put the plat back up there. And I just wanted to revisit the concern. There it is, yes. ACHD has already acknowledged the difficulty of this location, and I want to just touch on that a little bit more and ask the Planning Commission to query them further about the difficulty of traffic entering in and out here, because we have potentially two-car, probably in the neighborhood of 70 vehicles being parked in this development, and with only one exit, it will come out right where the road narrows down. After the roads are widened, after Locust Grove is widened, the exit will come right out where it narrows down. This is already a high density, high traffic area. The traffic is already backed up in the mornings, probably to where that exit is. Our house looks toward that circle. Our backyard faces that circle, and so we can see the traffic backed up there every morning. And so what I believe likely will happen is that residents coming out of this development will find it very, very difficult to cross and head north on Locust Grove. And so naturally, what I would do if I were them would instead turn right and then do an additional right turn and come down Merlot Way. And so I believe likely what will happen is this, by approving this development, what we're doing is creating a situation where it will be most natural and easiest for the traffic to flow through our neighborhood, where we have kids on the corner of Ascino and Victory waiting to get on buses. So there's kids all over that neighborhood. It's a quiet neighborhood now, and I believe what we're actually approving is to have traffic just blazing through our neighborhood. And so my request is just that the Planning Commission revisit this with HCAD and have a look at that and try to understand that intersection a little bit better, because I believe we're going to create an unsafe situation in that neighborhood. Secondly, I would just point out that through this whole process, there's been a lot of resistance to this development from the neighborhood. It is not anti-development. It is just asking for a reasonable zoning for the development. And with the changes, it appears that they have reduced the density down to what the neighborhood have asked. But I think if I understand right, really what is going on is that this developer owns the canal area, which is increases the size of property. So by math, it appears to be a lower density than what it really is. The fact of the matter is this is very high density housing that does not fit the neighborhoods in any direction from there. However, because of the property that's owned with the canal, it appears to be low density. And I appreciate your listening. Thanks.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, next is John Buckner.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you, Madam Chairman, and thank you for having me here, Planning and Zoning Commission. I just want to restate, well, I'm sorry.
Mr. Buckner, could you state your name and address, please?
I'm at 3877 South Picasso, and I am not related to the two previous speakers. Just to reiterate, I am pro-development. I'm not anti-development. I am just for a pro-development that makes sense. As has already been reiterated many times, sticking a R15 zoning density right in the middle of R4s and R8s and low to medium density zonings just does not make any sense. I would like to see the application changed for rezoning to no more than R8 and a redesign of the apartment style townhomes that doesn't fit in with the rest of the character of the community. I want to thank the support of the Planning and Zoning Commission during December for just your words. This includes especially Stephen Yearsley, who said that developers do their work and then leave the community to pick up the pieces. Also, Bill Parsons, who acknowledged the 45 emails sent by members of the community, as well as you, Mr. Seal, and Lisa Holland, and as well Mr. Grove, who said that he wants to like it, but it's isolated from the neighborhood. The members of the P&Z mentioned unanimously and with agreement of the 2019 comprehensive plan that while the designs look nice, they do not fit the character of the neighborhood. This conflicts with action item 5.01.02E that to support and protect the identity of the existing residential neighborhoods. The apartment-esque conjoined units differ drastically from the surrounding neighborhoods. This also conflicts with 3.07.00, which says to encourage compatible use in site design to minimize conflicts and maximize use of land. And as stated by the P&Z staff, quote, the proposed development is not like any of the detached single-family homes adjacent to the subject site. Like Commissioner Grove said, it's not like the configuration of the surrounding density. The design does not allow for safe and efficient access by public services as commented by you, Mr. Seal. It conflicts with 3.08.01A that states, or that says to require that development projects have planned for the efficient provision of all public services. As was recently just being discussed, the concerns about vehicles being able to navigate properly throughout the private streets. The applicant has also failed to meet the requirement for off-site parking. This conflicts with UDC 11-3C-6, which requires off-street parking required. And according to the application, this was not met, and I have not seen any evidence to date to show that they have satisfied this requirement. Related to this is also the fact that the conceptual designs look nice, but the parking garages, if you look carefully, they only allow for 2 cars. And the character and general accommodations of the diverse homes that are already in our community allow at least for trucks and SUVs. This development will not. This also further compounds the issues brought up previously by the Planning and Zoning Commission that if people use their garages for storage, that'll compound the issues of mass and traffic. Again, I want to state that I'm pro-development that is reasonable and that makes sense. And I would like to address you, Mr. Arnold. You said earlier in January that we're in it for the long haul. I respectfully would like to say, Mr. Arnold, no, you and Butler Realty are in it for the short term. We are in it for the long haul because we will be stuck with the consequences. Please work with us and let's do this together. Thank you.
Madam Chair, next we have Julie Edwards online. Julie, one moment, please.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay,
Can I go ahead and start?
Yeah, please state your name and address for the record.
Okay, my name is Julie Edwards and I live at 1310 East Mary Lane. It's about 1.25 miles south of this location. And some of the things have been addressed with what the developer spoke about, but I had written this up a little before, so I just wanted to address everything. According to the city's future land use map, Compass Point subdivision falls within a zone of medium density, yet they're requesting R15 zoning. I'm confused by this request, despite the time and effort put into creating and designing a future land use map by P&Z and a number of public meetings and others involved. Why so often do the developers push the limits of what has been planned zoning wise for a particular area, and then they seem to be approved most of the time? What's the point of the master plan if it's not followed? If it were an old plan, I'd understand, but this plan is just a few years old. Also, in the adopted comprehensive plan, there's a table in there, table 2.1, regarding housing goals, objectives, and action items. And one of the items, 2.01.01H, says locate higher density housing near corridors with existing or planned transit, downtown, and in proximity to employment areas, none of which are in this vicinity. I also understand that this development, at that time, it was 13 units per acre. I see that that has been reduced. I'm also curious about what the distances are between the duplexes or between the triplexes, just because some of the window designs on the homes, if you're standing in your living room, it looks like the windows are floor to ceiling, and you may be standing right next to your neighbor in their living room, looking right at them. Also, not as sure if this would pertain to you, but as far as impact fees, are duplexes and triplexes, this is just a question I have, counted as a single dwelling, or are those 2 and 3 dwellings? He did partially answer the question about the fence along the canal. And he had mentioned that it was going to run along the length of the pathway. I'm wondering, should it be extended, or will it be extended the entire length of the canal, so that, it's not just a fence along a path with an open space at either end where it meets the roadway. Also, pertaining to, let's see, it's unfortunate, I think, that the usable land is taken into consideration in the gross density for zoning. So therefore, I think this is the way that it is right now. Even though he reduced to 37 lots, it still is quite dense for the area, especially with R2 across the street, and then the other surrounding homes, what they are zoned. Also, has future widening of the road. I know that Victory is going to be widened. Locust Grove to the south, I'm sure, will be widened, since it's going to be widened down at Lake Hazel in Locust Grove, and then already from Overland to Victory on Locust Grove. 5 lanes up there, 3 lanes to the south. So is this showing, it seems that the entrance to the subdivision, is that eventually going to get eaten up a little bit more once that road is widened? And in that respect, as far as landscaping and those kinds of buffers along those main roads, is that something that, they'll put in trees, they'll do all this stuff, and then, 3 years down the road is widened, and then all of those trees are wasted, all of the concrete sidewalks are wasted.
Hey, Julie, could you wrap up your comments, please?
Yep.
Yeah, your 3 minutes.
Okay, I'm good. I'm done. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, that's all I know of indicating a wish to testify.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience that did not sign up that wishes to testify, either in person, in chambers, or on Zoom? Please press the raise your hand.
Madam Chair, we have a gentleman that wants to testify.
Okay,
in
Okay.
chamber.
Please come forward.
Galen Musso. I live at 687 East Forest Ridge Drive, which is to the west and slightly north of this proposed development. This, and we've lived there for 13 years. This development does not fit the character of the neighborhood, of the surrounding area. There's no public transit. As has been mentioned, I travel through this intersection on a daily basis. It is always busy. I cannot imagine the thought of putting in such dense housing. This is a little triangular lot, and I just cannot imagine 37 units on this little triangle. And frankly, the 10 Mile Creek is ugly. I mean, I don't know who owns it, but it is ugly and it needs to be cleaned up. It's not aesthetically pleasing, and I just see this as a disaster. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, if we have no one else wishing to testify, would the applicant like to come back?
Madam Chair.
Oh, yes, Joe.
Sorry, I'd like to address a few of the comments before, since they probably are more related to some city stuff rather than the applicant.
I was thinking the same thing. Go ahead.
First of all, I mean, if you want to come and write my staff reports, that other guy, you can come do that anytime. You were very good. I appreciate that. I understand that there are many conflicting comprehensive plan policies. There are. I want to note that the density, there's some confusion. I need to start an education series with this about the zoning and then the future land use map. The zoning has nothing to do with density in the city of Meridian. Not anymore. The new comprehensive plan is what dictates the zoning. So this site is zoned or is noted as medium density residential, which allows densities at 3 to 8 dwelling units per acre. You could do R40 here. It doesn't matter. That zoning is for the dimensional standards. So the lot sizes, setbacks, height, that stuff, not for the density. So R15 is noted as, I believe, medium high density residential is the word that we use for it, but it's still for the dimensional standards. R8 is medium density residential. As noted, the gross density for this, including the creek, is 4.8 or so, which is in the low end of the medium density. If you even remove the creek, it still does meet the medium density. It's about 6.6. So even if you remove that area, it's still in the medium density residential. So the project is not a high density development. High density would be over 15 dwelling units per acre for our comprehensive plan. And this is not even medium high, which would be 8 to 12. So I just want to, again, this is something that comes up a lot in subdivisions and between the difference of our comprehensive plan and our zoning. This happens quite a lot and there's a lot of confusion. But again, the density is going to be tied to the zoning or tied to the comprehensive plan and not the zoning. I apologize. The points regarding access, again, this is the furthest away you can get from the intersection on this property. So that's why ACHD is allowing it. And that's also why they don't want a public street, because there's not going to be any future road connectivity. No one's going to give up a building lot in your subdivision in order to have a bridge across, which would be obviously beneficial, probably more for the whole community, but no one's going to do that. It's unfortunate, but that's just the way this goes. Building bridges over creeks is not cheap. I understand your comment, sir, about the 10 Mile Creek being not aesthetically pleasing. City, again, this is one of the creeks that is specifically noted in our code to leave natural, and natural is natural, ugly or not ugly. That's just one of those things noted in there. And the irrigation district maintains that, not the city. The road widening and the roundabout project is slated to begin this year. Locust Grove north of the intersection should be at 5 lanes all the way up to whatever's north of Victory. Overland, that's right. And then south of it it will remain the 2 lanes or 3 that it is, except for outside of within the sphere of influence of the intersection, which the roundabout project will widen that, as I said, and widen the bridge as well, which is good for pedestrian safety. I do also believe Victory is slated to be widened again at some point. It's not in their CIP that I know of right now, which means that it probably won't be for the next 5 years or so. But all of that should help, and that's the point, is to fix the traffic problems here. So the city and ACHD have worked diligently on that to try to address that for now and well into the future. So I just wanted to address those comments from the city's perspective, especially the density stuff, because that's a big misconception. And a lot of the comp plan policies regarding high density do not apply here, because this is not a high density development, not by our standards and not by our definitions.
Thank you, Joe. I had made those exact same notes almost word for word from you. So would the applicant like to come back?
Yes,
Do you have
Madam
any
Chair,
other
I'd like
comments?
to share my screen again, if I might.
Sure.
Okay. There we go.
You should be good now, Steve.
There we go. So I was taking some notes because, oops, there we go. So I think what I'd like to do is just kind of go through one by one. I think I can hit them pretty quickly based on some of the comments that I heard tonight. So traffic, I used to work at ACHD, and it has always been kind of the main concern with most developments. And typically, you know, it's you're building a subdivision and then they will come, they being ACHD, and they widen the road. Well, in this case, we're actually working with ACHD ahead of time on widening the road before the development is actually approved. So the concern with traffic, you're going to have some, you know, a 5-lane arterial to the north with Locust Grove, you know, and south and west will be a 3-lane minor arterial. So we've got, and it'll be improved with the roundabout. So the backing that the neighbors are seeing, they are correct. I've been out there at 5 o'clock and it backs up quite a bit. But that'll all go away by the time we finish our project, before we get it built. So, and then density, just again, I think Joe did an excellent job explaining that. The whole reason we're coming in with that zoning is not so that we can get high density. It's just so that we can meet dimensional standards for the product type that we're using. If I met our 8-dimensional standards, it wouldn't meet what our intent is on the product type. So it's only to fit our product type in there. It's been said several times, they're concerned about apartments. I've done a lot of apartments, and these are not apartments. I don't put apartments on their own lot. These are, again, for sale, which we're hoping to market for the developer. So again, I'm here to reiterate to the commission, it's for sale, they're not apartments. Isolated from a neighborhood was another thing that brought up, that we're not a part of the neighbors or the neighborhood. Well, there's no way we could ever be apart. We've got arterials and a 100-foot canal right away separating us from, so there's really no way that we can integrate physically. And I think from a product type, we've got a very nice product that we're proposing. I didn't really touch much on it, but in our previous discussion, let me go up to the site layout. It was stated, are we providing enough parking? Well, we've got additional parking here that we're doing, and we're going to add some as staff recommended. Plus, we got 2 parking stalls in front of each unit with a 2-car garage. So essentially, all of the units will have 4 4-car parking ability, if you will. So I think we're well adequate in the parking arena. I tried to not take this too personal because it was stated that, I'm not in it for the long haul. And I'm in it, as soon as we're done here, we're out of here. Well, I've been doing this for 25 years. We've done a lot of nice projects in Meridian. A few to state are the Tuscany subdivision, Bear Creek, Sensi campus, Locksaw Falls, just to name a few. And I've probably done another 15 to 20 more. Unfortunately, city, I'm here, I'm stuck. My family's here. I'm not in it for the short haul. Something came up about windows designs, and I don't know why it was important with the neighbors, but unless they're planning to move there. But for the commission standpoint, what we typically do is we stagger the windows so that one, you're not looking right into the next one, so the windows will be staggered. But the other part of that is the commission should know that they're all fire rated because of our setbacks. Impact fees was brought up. Just for the record, again, I worked at ACHD and I worked on the impact fee ordinance, but those are the same as single family towns. For that matter, a fourplex, which is multifamily, typically pays 4 times the rate of a single family. So the impact fees will be the same. Question came up about the fence at the back of the walk. Yeah, our plan would be to extend it and connect it in to our fence that we're going to have along Victory Road. Landscaping, it was brought up about our stuff getting ripped out along ACHD. We're not going to do that. We're not going to put anything in their construction easement. We'll likely bond for that and then install it after the roundabout is done. That is correct. There is no public transit adjacent to the site. We anticipate as growth occurs that we will get transit out there. To a mile north of us, we do have transit along Overland Road, but transit is a catch-22. If you want it, you got to get density. Now again, we're at 4.8 units per acre. We're not dense. So this development alone won't drive the need for density, but that is correct. There wasn't any transit. 10 Mile Creek does get a little bit ugly, that was stated, especially in the winter times, but in the spring and summertime, when the water's flowing, you've got ducks, you've got all sorts of wildlife that goes in there. And I guess pretty is isle in the eye of the beholder, but it's I think a great natural area that will be a great amenity to this site. And just to sum up to the commission, we heard your concerns back in December. We are trying. With that, I'll end my rebuttal.
Thank you, Mr. Arnold. Any further questions for the applicant? Or are we ready to close the public hearing?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Seal.
Just a quick, on the no public transit there for the busy intersection and all that stuff, considering the uniqueness of the layout of the sub there, have you worked with anybody to put in possibly a bus stop or park and ride or anything along those lines?
Madam Chair, Commissioner, no, we've not, but I have in other projects, we've behind the sidewalk is put little, shelter areas or a pad for a shelter area that can come. That is something we can do on this site.
And that might just alleviate some of the public transit piece of this. Any opportunity that there is to have that, I think should be taken advantage of. And I think the uniqueness of the layout there provides for that to possibly happen. So without getting too crazy about it, especially with the road construction that's coming your way very, very soon.
What I might suggest on that, so that if we poured concrete, it might deteriorate, you know, because it could be several years. Maybe what we do is we provide an easement for it in the future.
I'll follow up to that. Who would you provide the easement to?
It could be an easement stated on the plat that it's for a future bus stop, and not necessarily call out specifically, because there's a good chance there may be another public transit that comes in.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? If not, can I get a motion to close the public hearing on H-2020-0100?
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to close the public hearing on H-2020-0100. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Opposed? Motion carries. Who wants to jump off?
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Commissioner Seal.
Just looking at the improvements that they've made, well, I'll start before then. And I've said it before, it'd be nice if this was going to be, you know, a small area with some shops and stuff like that. And that said, it's not zoned that way, and that's not the way that it's being presented here. So everything that's being presented is within the confines. It works within the rule set of the comprehensive plan, as well as city code. So we kind of got to work with what's in front of us. And with that said, I think that the applicant has worked to provide everything that they can in order to work within this spot. So the density seems to be the rub with a lot of folks here. So with the product type that's there, and ownership being part of it, I think it's going to be a more welcome addition, where people are going to come in. It's probably going to be their starter home, more like a condo type, you know, piece of property that they can own and you know, eventually move into a bigger piece of property. So that tends to mean that people are going to try and take care of it because they know that's not their forever home, that might, you know, fall down around them. I do like the changes that they've made where they put the loop in. I'm happy to see that they're willing to put more parking in without taking away too much of usable open space. The emergency access, I think, takes care of any kind of safety issues as far as a fire truck being able to get in there. Instead of them having to back in, they'll be able to use the emergency access. Unfortunately, that won't work for the trash service and things like that. So hopefully they can work to make that easier for the trash service, you know, recycling service to be able to pick up the receptacles as they take them out. Kind of like when we have common driveways, we have the same kind of issues in some of the bigger subdivisions. So I don't see that as a huge issue, just something that they need to be aware of and hopefully work to improve upon that. Other than that, I think it's unique. I mean, I personally have a son that's looking for something like this in this area, especially something that's very low maintenance, as they said, where, you know, essentially you're going to live there. You're not going to have to mow the lawn or own yard equipment or anything along those lines. So I think it's a good product for Meridian. I wish it fit a little bit better into the piece of property that it's in, but I think they've done a good job on trying to work it in there.
Great. Commissioner Grove, you came off mute.
Yeah, I would echo a lot of what Commissioner Seal said. I appreciate the work that they've done to reconfigure and rework this site, and working to incorporate the staff recommendations, especially with this revised plat that they've shown tonight. the loop does improve the flow within this development. And I really like the S curve, so that we don't end up with a wall of homes. It gives a lot more character to this general layout, and that central section with the Mu in the middle, it hits some of the things that I had problems with on the site when we first saw it in December, where it didn't have a sense of community. It just felt very blah, and for lack of better description. But I like what they've done with this. I know the architectural elements of it are not necessarily for everybody, but I think I like it. It adds a different character to this corner, and will create a new identity for this area that will help the entire area kind of stand out and have a different sense of identity, as somebody put it, but probably flipped on what they were intending. Looking at the surrounding area, the number of homes in here dropping down to 37 is almost identical to the street directly to the west of this with the number of houses. So I'm not concerned with the density as presented. And I appreciate the changes that they've made, and I think that this works for me going forward.
Okay, thank you. Any other commissioner comments? Commissioner
Madam Chair.
Casanelli, you've come off mute.
I have come off mute. I wasn't here in December for it, the first go round on it. I do like my comments here would be, I like the loop. Just to address the design, that's a tough one. It definitely doesn't fit. I mean, everything nearby seems to be craftsman style, and this is definitely modern, so it would definitely stick out. However, that's one side, man. The other side says this, to have everything looking the same gets boring. So that's a tough one. What bothers me on this one, and I've already brought it up once tonight, is the transition, and not necessarily I'm not on this for a density standpoint, but the transition with all the homes that line up against 10 Mile Creek, there were essentially 2-to-1 from what I count. It's 19 to 10 from one end to the other there, going up to the homes on the other side of the creek. I would prefer maybe cutting that down a little bit, just to spread that out, if they could do that somehow. And my other thing is I do not think that there is enough parking off street parking, if you will, the 9 spaces for 36 homes or whatever it is. It's not nearly enough. I think that's going to be a big issue. You're going to get some visitors. You drive in any subdivision, and probably every other home has a car on the street. People use their garages for storage, park the cars on the lot. They want to pull the car out to, for kids to play in the driveway or whatever it is. I'm really concerned about the parking. Some of these neighborhoods like that, it's always an issue. That parking is always an issue. That said, an infill project like this, tough to do anything. I like most of it in there. Not crazy about the design, but it is nice to have something different. But my issue is parking and the transition along the creek. I can't get behind it yet with those two issues, but as far as trying to get something in that corner where most things won't fit, I would commend the applicant on what they've done here. They've, I don't know what else you can do in there. And you know, if I saw more parking and cut maybe 2 lots out of the backside to bring the transition down a little bit, I could probably get behind it. But as it stands right now, those things, I just can't get behind it.
Okay. Commissioner Yearsley.
Madam Chair, thank you. I actually have to commend the applicant for coming back, making the changes that we've requested. It looks, I know I'm going to get heat for this, but it looks amazingly different to me with the more open space and the spaces. I do agree with Bill Casanelli that Commissioner Casanelli, it would be kind of nice to maybe spread out. I don't know if I have problems with the triplexes or the duplexes, but having maybe a little bit more space in between the different units might be a little bit more nice to try to break up that plane a little bit. With regards to the density, Tuscany, which is across the street, has a section of homes very similar to this within our subdivision, and next to the school, there is townhomes or attached products as well. So it's not unfamiliar with the area that's there. I know it's a challenging site with the limited access to it and how small it is. I think they've done the best that they can. So like I said, I'd prefer to see a little bit more spacing along that frontage against the canal. But other than that, I think it looks amazingly better.
Madam Chair.
Is that Joe?
Yes, sorry.
Okay, go ahead, Joe.
I just wanted to note on the parking, a lot of these units, I don't know the ratio. Steve will obviously know that better than me, but I would, at least a portion of them are 2-bedroom. So the parking pad in front is not required. So that all is extra parking according to the parking counts. I just wanted to note that for everybody.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Casanelli.
one other thing I wanted to address that I didn't was the applicant was looking for a couple of exceptions there on a couple of the conditions, and I'm behind staff's recommendations on those. That has to do with the sidewalks and the crosswalks and such. I would like to see the pavers that staff is requesting. I think that would give it a nice touch. So I wanted to add that in. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Joe, yeah, Joe.
Sorry. I should have touched on that earlier. I apologize. The recommendation I have in my staff report regarding that was more of a precaution because some of these private street developments, when they have sidewalk, they claim it's sidewalk, but it's just like an extension of the asphalt street. And we didn't want that. So that's why I made that comment. Knowing that he's going to construct them as concrete, I would not have written my condition that way. I should have asked the applicant to be specific. But I'm okay with the sidewalks just being general concrete and the crossings being the way that the applicant has proposed them as raised, I guess they're known as tabletop crosswalks. We will verify with fire that they are okay with that, but it is my understanding that they usually are. But in general, the crossings will be delineated. If commission still prefers my condition, that's also in your purview to keep it as is.
Okay. But your original condition was there because you didn't realize he was going to do curb and a concrete sidewalk. You thought it was going to be asphalt, right?
Yes, ma'am. That's correct.
But that's okay. So you're okay with it being strict the way the applicant has written, as requested?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would say this is night. I think it's drastically different from what we saw the last time, especially the revised one that showed up today with the loop. I think that takes away a lot of that, just, you know, driving in and the feeling that you can't get out. And I think the odd shape, it just calls for some creative thinking, and I think they've done that. I don't think it seems near as crammed in. And let's see. Oh, yeah, I really liked the rock features going all the way up. You know, you usually see that just a few feet. And the decks and everything looked really nice. I think for the product that this is, it's got some kind of nice features. And I think, you know, they've done just exactly what we asked from the last time we saw this. Right down to, I think Commissioner Yearsley asked him to reduce it by at least 10, which I think it looks like it's come down 11 units. And yeah, the density, I know it's sometimes hard to understand when we call it, it's, you know, R15, that doesn't mean we'll take 15 units. It's really in that medium density range. And at the lower end of it, it's just with the attached units, we need the setbacks that are described in an R15. So I would be in support of it. Commissioner Lorcher, did you want to add any comments, or are you good to?
Madam Chair, I actually like the product that they have. I wasn't here for the December meeting. Because it's behind a gated community, it doesn't seem, I know that's a busy corner. I drove it all the time from Cole and turned down Locust Grove to get over to Southwest Meridian on a regular basis, especially during Snowmageddon when Overland and the freeway were compromised. It's a very challenging corner. I think with the roundabout going in, that's going to change the whole dimension of that corner as far as traffic is concerned. And the way traffic is going to flow, which is the concern for the residents in the area, is going to be 100% different. And roundabouts are a blessing and a curse all at the same time. It takes us a while to get used to them. As far as the design that the developer is suggesting, if somebody didn't say it before, it's in the eyes of the beholder. If everything is exactly the same, then we're all the same color beige. But to be able to invite young families or professionals to live in a small starter house in a neighborhood that they couldn't usually afford, now this builder is offering that product. With the 10 Mile Creek behind it, I live behind 10 Mile Creek as well. And there's parts of it that are super nice. And then the winter, of course, it's kind of barren. And so it is what it is because the city doesn't have any control over that. And the builder's done everything that, from the conversation I've heard, everything that you've asked him, he has taken care of.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
That's what it shows.
It's snowing.
Okay. Any other comments?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Yearsley, could you mute? Thank you.
Touched on a little bit earlier, but the one of the major problems that I had with it was just the entrance and access, and it didn't seem like the road, basically the planning and the rebuild of the road was going to happen for, it sounded like 5 years, if I remember right from the December meeting that we had. But it's actually starting in this year, will be finished by the end of next year, which coincides with when, you know, they'll break ground and start to have people take residence in here. So, I mean, with that out of the way, you know, we're kind of, again, we're stuck with what's in front of us and does it fit, does it work? The other comment I'll make is I really like to thank the gentleman that very, very concisely quoted all of us. A lot of times I go home from here scratching my head, wondering if anybody ever listens to anything that we say at all. So I really want to thank that person, and hopefully anybody else that's listening, bring that with you, because it does actually help when we make our decisions, especially if we know that we got to pay attention to what we're saying and stick with our guns. So thank you. And if there's nothing else, I can take a stab at a motion.
Please do.
After considering all staff, applicant, and public testimony, I move to recommend approval to the City Council of file number H 2020-0100 as presented in the staff report for the hearing date of February 18th, 2021, with the following modifications: that A1E and A3F be modified to strike sidewalk and replace with pedestrian crossings, and to include raised paved pathways. That the applicant work to provide an easement for mass transit stop, and that they provide more parking along the existing common areas.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to recommend approval of H-2020-0100 with modifications. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, motion carries. And Madam Clerk, did you need roll call on that, or did you get them?
Commissioner Casanelli, I heard you as a nay.
That is correct.
Okay. I think all others were yay. Okay. With that, I'll take one more motion.
Madam Chair,
To Mr. Seal.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Good night.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Nay.